Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen. And we today we're going to have a slightly different format.
But before we start the format, could I do my?
But I was right. But first, I want David to do his weekly reading for us.
Okay, and today's poem is coming from Robert Frost, one of my favorite poems, The Road Not Taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden back. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very interesting that you dovetailed that into our story of Exodus, and I purposefully selected the word. I should say, you David-tailed it. Very, very well done, David.
Thank you.
Robert Frost is one of my favorites, and also Carl Sandburg, among others. Carl Sandburg's are lengthy poems, and it's just very interesting. That's all. Each poet has his or her way of stating things. Anyway,
yes. I have a cassette of Robert Frost reading Robert Frost poems, but it's a cassette. So not many people can enjoy it anymore except me.
At that time, Robert Frost was, remember in the 60s, he was going blind from, I guess he had cataracts. And by the time Ricky got the cassette.
Did you mute yourself? Thank you.
Okay, there we go. Thank you, Ricky. But by the time Ricky got the cassette, Robert Frost had probably passed away.
Well, I don't know when he recorded it. Hopefully,
that's right.
Before he passed away.
But that's good. That's a keeper.
That is definitely a keeper.
That's right. Well, we're going to have some fun today. Some different approaches to this, which I sent. I just got some extra information from the internet, and you'll know it when we do it. So what I thought was we may want to start with verse 15. We had already covered this last week, but we can start with verse 15.
Is that Exodus 2? I wasn't here last week.
Yes, it's Exodus 2, verse 15.
2:15. Got it.
So if someone would like to read, I know David likes to start us off, so I'll do that, and then we'll bounce back and forth with other people who would like to read.
Now, when Pharaoh,
just verse 15, David.
Okay, now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses, but Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well.
Okay, where's Midian?
Where's Midian? Persia?
Southeast Arabia.
That's right. It depends who you read. It is
Southwest. Northwest. Sorry, Northwest Arabia.
Northwest.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows. It covered a very large area. There were multiple tribes. For those of you who have Plout's edition, there's a footnote to this about where the land of Midian is. But this is correct. Some place it in the Sinai Peninsula, but most scholars place it east of the Gulf of Aqaba in northwest Arabia.
Ooh.
Okay, so nobody really knows for sure where Midian, but he certainly ran a long distance. Moses really went as far away as he possibly could, figuring that would that the distance involved obviously would lead him to safety. So, David, now why don't we start with verse 16 and go through verse 18.
Okay.
Marty,
Yes.
first, Gail wanted to say something, and secondly, I sent messages with my chutzpah to people that we cannot see their faces. So please look at the chat or fix it so we can see you. It's really important.
Okay.
Get a chat and I see everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
Yeah, but we see only half face.
Oh, I can see everybody. Yes, I can see everybody.
I think it must be your
Chris, get
settings page. Mary, it must
I am
be.
using my tablet today, so it's a little different format, but I can see everybody.
Okay. Okay, I can see everybody, but sometimes we see only their forehead. I won't say that again.
Okay. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters. This is right out of 10 Commandments, or 10 Commandments is right out of this. And they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. And when they came to Reuel, their father, he said, "How is it you are come so soon today?" And they said, "An Egyptian delivered us out of the land of the shepherds. And moreover, he drew water for us and watered the flock." And he said unto his daughters, "And where is he?"
Oh, David, you ran on.
Yeah.
Ran on because there's a lot here first to go
Sure.
over. And it's going to be hard for some to go back in the thinking process. David read, now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters. And we're going to find out who the priest is. And they came to draw water and filled their troughs to water their father's flock. But the shepherds drove them off. Does that story sound familiar?
Yeah.
Surely does.
Yes, with Rachel.
Okay. So this is like a repetition, okay, for us to think back, into the book of Genesis.
Right.
we got 7 brides. We need 7 brothers.
But I found some.
She didn't get.
Any other comments about the well motif?
Well, you want to find a bride, you go to the well. I mean, that's,
Well, what does the well signify in Torah?
water, life.
Lots of life.
Okay, well, it's a meeting place. It's where people in any community that had a well, they would go to meet there.
They would
And
gather.
they would exchange stories, exchange news. It was the internet, if you will.
It was a gathering. It was a gathering place.
Yes, yeah, that's very
They would
correct.
gather at that point, that place, the well.
That's right. And like in any other group, you're going to have a group of bullies. Okay, because we read on, and the shepherds drove off the young ladies and drove them off. And does this again sound familiar? Yeah, the story of Isaac and Rachel.
Isaac and Rachel.
Of Isaac and
Eliezer. It's Eliezer that comes.
yes.
It's Eliezer. It's the
Right.
it's the guy that walks with Abraham.
Right. So this becomes an important theme. We've discussed that theme in other ways before, but it usually implies that in Torah that some rite of, if you will, rite of passage is occurring. Things change at the well. Okay, and people get married subsequently.
Yeah.
Okay, and it also in the back of my mind, is there something also with Jacob and the flocks also? Rachel says, hey, look at that handsome man, you drove some people off too. And so this is a repetitive story. Any other yes. First Chris, and then Joanne, because I'm not sure which one had their hand up first.
Okay, thank you. Good morning and good Shabbos.
Good
I
job.
just see in here that it says that the shepherds came and drove them away. I think that the other story is like Rabbi Miri says in regard with Eliezer, who was the receiver of all this little episode. But I also see that God led Moses to that well for a reason. They could have ended up God knows where, but in that particular location, that's where God intended to put pieces together for Israel.
Good points. Good points. Joanne, please.
Well, I see the word shepherds meaning many or more than one.
Wait a minute,
And,
you're having some problem with
Moses rose to their defense. But oh, can you not hear me?
there's an
We're
echo
here.
effect.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now it's better.
Okay, I moved the computer closer.
Good.
We have a bad sound system. We don't know what to do with it. Anyway, Moses is one person. The shepherds with S is a number of people. But I'm wondering if Moses was still would still have his clothes on that he wore as Pharaoh's son. Because they seem to just kind of evaporate. There's no real fight involved. Or did he become Israeli and wear Israeli clothing?
We are
don't know.
about to,
They ran.
about to get to that point.
Okay.
Just give us a couple of extra verses. And then you can repeat that because that's important. Okay.
Yes.
An Egyptian. Okay. I see
Okay.
it.
And so so the shepherds came and drove them off. Moses rose to the defense of the young ladies, and he took it upon himself to water the flock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what does that, we had also read, each one of these little vignettes are telling us something about the character of Moses.
Mhm.
What did he do before that was similar, not quite the same, but similar? Yes, Chris. And then Ricky.
Definitely brings to memory to me when when he was the son of Pharaoh and an Egyptian worker was stricken by the Egyptians, and he felt urged to save him, to protect that man from the Egyptians. That was something that probably surprised him, that he will have that feeling of help, wanting to help. And I see the same thing here, where he sees that applies himself to water the sheep, where there's after he chased everybody away. So his heart, I think, is definitely for the people. His heart desires to serve the people.
Okay.
And I love that part about Moses. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Yes, Ricky.
Yeah, I was about to make the same point that he's definitely a rescuer.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
And
He's
one
titled.
word, yeah.
So
Yeah.
he shows some qualities that you
Caretaker,
can sort of anticipate what's going to happen later. And then, as David read, when they returned to their father, Reuel, okay, the priest's name is Reuel. He said, how is it?
Reuel. Reuel.
Yes.
Reuel.
It's important. It's important.
It is. And we can discuss that too. Well, since you brought it up, Rabbi Mary, why don't we do it now?
Yeah.
About the name. Reuel. Yes.
I think I
Reuel.
mentioned that. Yeah. Go ahead, guys.
No. There's more to be said. Because
every name in the Torah that ends with El is connected with godliness. Israel, Gabriel, Michael. And here we see someone that belongs to the Midianites and is also called Reuel. And Reu means shepherding. What's the verb of shepherd, of sheep? Being a shepherd. Being a shepherd of God.
Interesting.
Right.
I think this is connected with Christianity, but I don't know that much about being a shepherd.
They do that too. According to, and this is Sarna, This is his commentary about Reuel. The name means friend of God.
That's also true. Rea.
And it is mentioned once again, we'll come across it, his name again in Numbers, in Numbers, Hobab, son of Reuel the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law.
Yes, true.
Now we're also
yes,
going
you're
to come
absolutely right.
across
Yeah.
a few other names.
Marty,
Yes.
I have a
Yes, Gail.
question for Rabbi Mary. Mary, why does he have two names? Because you know the other name is Jethro.
Okay.
What's
there
the
you go.
translation of that name? And why does he have two names?
Well, you don't have two names, Gail? No, I'm sorry. What's that? The truth is that I don't know. I can break it into pieces. The word Yitro and the word Yeter is more. I need to check it out. I don't know it top of my head. What's nice, Marty, is that it's the same word. Rea is friend, and lirot is to shepherd, being a shepherd. So that's very nice. But Gail, I'm so sorry. I'll research that. I'll look into it because now it really is interesting to me as well.
This has caused your question. You're not alone in raising this question, Gail. It is. It also. There are different phrases throughout the Torah that that suggest Hobab is the father-in-law, but in other texts, this latter epithet is given to Jethro, who also bears the title priest of Midian. Rabbis tried to reconcile the discrepancies by assuming that Reuel was the grandfather of the girls, and that the other names all refer to the same person who bore several names. That's not uncommon in the Middle East. This raises the possibility that the Hebrew Yitro or Yeta is not a proper name, but an honorific, meaning His Excellency.
You can't see your face on
Or
Torah.
the preeminent or the foremost.
See it. Move.
It can't be the grandfather because it says
It's helping.
he's talking about his daughters and he's going to give his daughter to, so that doesn't make any sense at all.
That's right.
Yeah.
So take your pick. Does it really matter?
Yeah.
I want to know why.
What's in a name, right? No, but seriously, it is
Well,
important.
names are very
It
important,
is
like Mary says, and that's why I'm.
Maybe the name is, yes, go ahead. Yes, please, Joanne.
I'm just looking at my cell phone. The name Jethro is primarily a male name in Hebrew origins that means abundance. In the Bible, Jethro, aka Reuel or Hobab, was in the Old Testament, a priest of Midian of the Kenite clan. Moses took refuge. Moses later married Jethro's daughter, but here it says it means abundance.
Okay.
Yeah. That helps. It's a little different in the definitions in the Hebrew dictionary, but that would work, Joanne. That makes sense because
Thank you.
its preference is having more Yeah, in abundance is having more. Yoter in Hebrew is more. So that will work.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Larry,
I'd like to add another ripple. This is from Fox Commentary,
please.
Priest of Midian. This title has spawned extensive theorizing about the origin of Mosaic religion, sometimes called Kenite hypothesis. After the Kenites, the tribe of Smiths connected to Moshe's father-in-law and spoken of favorably at a number of points in the Bible. It has been suggested that Moshe learned the rudiments of his religious or legal system from this source. We do not have enough evidence to make a positive judgment on this theory. Biographically, it makes sense for Moshe to marry into a holy family of some sort. So that's another thing to ponder.
Very good point.
Now, what's interesting, very interesting, Larry, is that Abraham, when he sends Eliezer to find a wife for Isaac, he says, don't give me a Canaanite. Don't give me a Canaanite. So here we, that's the difference, the different road that Moshe is going.
Yeah.
Very, very good. So if we would, David, would you care to read on?
Yeah,
That's it.
Marty.
Yes.
Marty.
Okay.
Yes,
Sorry.
Michael.
Yeah,
Just one second. Yes,
Yeah.
Michael.
before you go on, I had been thinking about this and just pass on a personal thought, if I may, concerning the well. And if you think about it, when you say it was a meeting place or a gathering place, the well eventually became the synagogue.
Okay, yeah, it's an interesting comment. Yes.
Just
Yeah,
a personal,
because it's Beit Knesset.
just a personal.
Yeah, in Hebrew is in Hebrew is Beit Knesset, a place of gathering. That's what synagogue means in Hebrew. Beit Knesset, a house of gathering.
Well,
Very good.
Wasn't it called the Beis HaMikdash? The
No, that's the temple.
temple. Okay.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Michael, and Rabbi Miri. Excellent. So let's see what the girls answer. Their answer to Reuel. Okay.
Verse 20. And he said unto
19.
Okay, and they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and moreover, he drew water for us and watered the flock.
Okay, let's stop at that point.
Yeah.
Joanne, how could they figure out he was Egyptian? You gave the answer. Why don't you repeat that? Your
Maybe
comment or your earlier comment, if you repeat
Yeah.
that.
An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. I read that earlier today, but it didn't make it, went by.
Okay, they
Thank you.
knew he
Yeah.
was because of what he was
Yeah.
wearing.
Sure. Even if he didn't have on maybe the clothing like looking like he belonged to Pharaoh, he would still within his have only had Egyptian clothes, maybe to run away.
Yeah, because he took flight almost immediately.
Right.
Yes, Larry,
Fox again.
please.
Moshe would have been recognizable as such from his manner of dress and lack of facial hair.
I agree with that. Yes.
Right.
Lack of facial hair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Clean
the
shaven.
Egyptians cliche. Uh-huh.
Had no beard. Huh.
Right.
No eyebrows, no eyebrows.
No
mustache.
eyebrows?
No, they would paint them. They were tattooed. Their eyebrows and their eyes were tattooed.
That's right.
Is that right? Fascinating.
Yes, Gail.
I was just gonna say, I would know immediately just from when he speaks.
That
He's
too.
gonna have that would be my first clue, not the way he's dressed. He can be dressed any way he wants, but when he speaks, you pick up right away.
That's right. So it's very easy. Okay. First, Suzanne, there was another hand up too. Oh, Dawn. Okay. So first Suzanne, then Dawn.
The Egyptians would also shave their heads too. And they did got rid of all this head hair because of lice, which also is another reason why they were heavy into the eye makeup, because that also helped protect them. So, I mean, there was a biological reason for their appearance.
Okay. Yeah. You know, a lot of the colonists here did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was very common for the same reason. They would shave the head, and they all wore wigs when they were in meeting places. So that's not uncommon. Very good, Suzanne. Don?
Yeah, also, Midian must have been close enough to Egypt that the daughters would instantly recognize an Egyptian, because there are a lot of tribes in the area. So you get some idea of how close the two areas were.
Very good. Also, there's a lot of trade that goes on in this area. It is a centerpiece throughout history to this modern day for trade routes. Okay, and so I would assume that they knew of other tribes all around them, as well as whoever one of the tribes in Midian. You know, if it is a consortium of tribes versus one tribe, doesn't matter, but they knew of other groups of people living around them. And you're very correct, Don. Very good. Very good. Any other comments? Yes, Joanne.
I'm reading a little more about Jethro.
Okay.
And it says Jethro is a priest in Midian, that's in Arabia, but its allegiance to the God of Israel becomes evident only after the obvious successor of the latter, Exodus 18:11. In this sense, Jethro was very different from the other famous non-Arabic, not Abrahamic priest, Melchizedek. As a major tributary to Israel's legislative organization, Jethro gives Israel not only its signature judicial system, he also introduces the idea that every man should personally be aware of the law.
Very good point. Very good point, because Joanne, would you earmark that page or put a little tab on it so we can just use that again when we discuss Jethro later?
Okay, it's
excellent.
Grace wanted to say something. Grace
okay,
wanted
yes, Grace.
Thank you, Rabbi Mary. Well, I'm just finding this very interesting, whereas, okay, so they recognized that he was an outsider, perhaps, you know, an Egyptian. And he, however, you know, he protected them from the shepherds, and the Egyptians would not normally run to the defense of the maids to water the flock. They would be more in a demanding sense of, get me this and do that, rather than be of service to them. So they find this quandary in this meeting when they explain to the soon-to-be father-in-law, Reuel, hey, look what this guy did. And is he really an Egyptian? He seems that his behavior is more like an Israelite. That's what I'm picking up in what we've read thus far.
Okay, it's a very strong point too. Very strong point.
Now, go ahead, Don. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Don.
Okay, just one more point on Jethro versus Reuel. Jethro was a Midianite priest, and that his name Jethro is associated with his priesthood with the Midianites. But then later we learn that he also was persuaded to worship Yahweh. And so the other half of his name, El, may allude to the fact that he was switching over. So it's just a wild conjecture.
Okay.
Yeah.
You hit on something, and I think it's important. I'll say first, Rabbi Mary, then Ricky.
What I wanted to point out, and if you recall, what happens in the previous meeting of Eliezer to Rachel, coming to her father to express what happened, and the difference to what happens now when Zipporah goes to her father and tells the story. It's very interesting to see the characters of Rachel and Zipporah.
Yes, very good point. So Ricky, yes, and then I'm going to come back to you, Don. If I don't know if Ricky is answering that question.
No, I'm about to ask another one. The Midianites, aren't they, I'm looking in my family tree, aren't they a distant relative, a distant cousin? I don't know if I missed any conversation. I can't find them on my family tree here, but aren't they a distant relative of the Abraham and Isaac and Jacob clan?
It's one concept, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But where did they fit in to, does anybody remember offhand so I can find them on this chart?
Do you have the lineage from Esau?
I have the lineage chart.
Or Ishmael?
That's Esau.
Okay.
That's where it's from.
Oh, okay, Ishmael, Ishmaelites, All right, well, I'll look on that. That's the left-hand side of my chart.
Look at those. What crossed my mind, Don, is that it is almost as if Reuel is very much like the character of Abraham,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
who is also someone who walks with God.
Mm-hmm.
So this becomes sort of mystical as well, without going into it in details and like that. But here he's open to the stranger. He's, if you think of his behavior and what he does, think about what Abraham offers. We've got to prepare a meal. We've got to do all kinds of things, make these people very happy that they're here, welcome them with open arms. And we're going to find that also about Reuel. You stimulated that when you were bringing up what you did. So a number of people had their hands up. Please raise your hands again so I can. Okay, So Joanne and then Chris. For some reason, your position on my screen has shifted. So this is why that's why. So so Joanne, you're first, and then Chris.
I'm not sure I heard this from you. You were saying something about Ishmael and Abraham.
Check the lineage from
Mhm.
Ishmael and also from Esau
Esau.
to see which
Esau.
where the Midianites stem from.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Esau.
I couldn't.
Because I don't know for sure, but it may be one of those. Doesn't Esau marry somebody who's a Midianite?
Yes.
I had 5 wives.
Naomi's daughter-in-law was one of them, wasn't it? She had 2 daughter-in-laws, and one was a
Yeah.
Moabite, and the other one, I believe, was a Midianite.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for for mentioning that.
Huh.
Yeah, okay.
My question was,
Yes.
Getting back to what you're saying, and I totally believe on this, that, also that Reuel was not really a Hebrew, but his heart was already being prone by God to follow God for the deeds that he was doing and how he was reacting to. We'll see that in the future. But as we see now, and I love the fact that his name is Jethro to the world, but Reuel to the people. And so I do believe that God had already chosen him to be part of this special event in the life of Moses. Especially Moses didn't have really a great knowledge of God at that point, as far as traditions and everything else, because it was he that started the circumcision after they left Egypt. So there was a lot of people that didn't really know much about God. They had been in slavery for so long, right?
Sure.
So, but anyway, thank you for letting me say all of
Well,
that.
thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Oh, yes, Gail. Your hand on my screen, your hand blends in. Yeah, because you have the mirror with it. Your hand blends in with on my screen, blends in with the wall, and I sometimes can't see it.
I was just going to say how different the story would be if Moses had fled and hidden out and hidden with the Hebrews, rather than going to a strange place and being taken in by a quote foreigner. That it would have been a whole different story. And the significant, like we talked about earlier, this Exodus is all about aliens in relationship with them. I mean, that's what it's all about. So this theme is very important, that he's taken in by a quote foreigner. It's kind of the key to the whole thing.
Remember what Gail has said as we move in a few verses. We're going to be discussing that. I don't know who had their hand up first, but should we do ladies?
Just one very, very quickly.
Okay.
Guys, we made a big mistake, including myself. It's not in the past, it wasn't about Rachel, but about Rebecca. So I apologize.
Yes, and thank you. Thank you for correcting me. Thank you.
It was about Rebecca.
I do that very often. I get the 2 names backwards. Thank you. Yes, Don.
If I may read a short excerpt on the origins of Midianites.
Sure.
In the book of Genesis, Midian was the son of Abraham and Keturah. Midian's 5 sons, Ephah, Epher, Enoch, Abidah, and Eldah, were the progenitors of the Midianites. Their geographical situation is indicated in Genesis as having been to the east of Canaan, as Abraham sent the sons of his concubines, including Midian, eastward. Midianites figure into the story of the Israelites' migration to Israel when they cooperate with Jacob's sons in selling their half-brother Joseph into slavery. Those are things I never realized.
Very, very good, Don. Thank you very much. Yes, Joanne.
I have one more little comment when I was reading before about Jethro. And I had to read this a number of times to even, I guess, understand it. And it talks about aware of the law, the judicial system. And then there's this little comment. It says, this is, of course, the very principle that makes Jesus a personal savior rather than some distant national liberator. You have to really think about this, that it's the law that Jethro helped write and understood. It's powerful. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, as David had, why don't we go with verse 20?
20.
20, yes.
If David, why don't you do that?
Verse 20. And he said unto his daughters, and where is he? Why is it that ye have left the man? Call him that we may eat bread. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah his daughter. And she bore a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land.
Sounds like
Okay.
a science fiction book.
Now, some people will have foreign land.
Yeah.
Okay. But first, let's go back before we get to Gershom. Is this a usual way to thank someone?
Sure.
Hey, take one of my daughters and she's yours.
Oh, I thought you were talking about breaking bread. Of course.
I'll give you a cow, I'll give you a sheep, I'll give you a wife.
There's a lot that we can discuss here. If we want to, we can do that in another 10 years by the time we get through everything. But it seemed to me to be a little strange. There's a lot missing.
Yes, a lot.
To do this, he doesn't know very much other than this one kind act. And he not only breaks bread with Moses, but he says, take my daughter.
But we don't know the timing. It could have been,
Exactly.
Moses consent to stay with the man. How long did he stay with the man before he gave him the daughter? And she bore him a son. So we're already a year, So, I mean, it's the time collapse that we don't understand here.
That's right. Cecil B. DeMille answered that for us. Okay, I don't know who had their hand up first, Suzanne or Chris.
Well, this is really not abnormal, because if you think of all the other weddings, they were pretty much the same way. There you go, you see Sarah and they're in the tent already. And then the Rachel just, everything happens so quick. And I have to agree with Ricky. We have no clue, but obviously nobody thought about writing that down. How did it go? What happened? But it is what it is. He is married to.
It was. It may have been there, but it may have been edited out. Because it is not. It may have been that, though it may have been felt that it wasn't necessary. It didn't add to
Right.
the story.
Right.
I don't know. Who knows?
Right.
Yes, Suzanne.
You know, I was, this part that we're just discussing reminded me of Lot. And at least it's better offering a daughter a hand in marriage than Lot offering his
Yeah, they trade in.
to be, well, I even hate to say the word raped. So it always seems like the girls are being offered as something.
Your chattel,
Okay.
your property.
It probably was traditional in that Rabbi Mary, I don't know who had their hand up first, Rabbi Mary or Gail.
Gail, go ahead.
I was just going to say courtship was not a concept that had not been invented yet back then.
Probably so.
Yeah.
Although, no,
So-
wait a minute. Courtship does come up in Jacob's story.
Well, yeah, sort of.
It's
but-
convoluted, but it is
Yeah.
it's still
I'm sorry.
courtship.
No, that was the father controlling that. That wasn't the courtship.
I know.
You had to wait till the Middle Ages before you had courtship.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, Rabbi Mary.
Well, regarding that, given the woman as a piece of something, that we know that that was happening in that time, and the super Orthodox these days make that shidduch when the kids are born. They said this
That's
and
right.
these are going to get married. So,
That's
so
right.
many people
Yeah.
in our tradition do that. Okay, now let me go back to the parallels or not parallels of Rivka, what you call Rebecca, Rivka and Eliezer, the slave or the guy of Abraham in the well,
Mhm.
and what's happening now. Does anyone remember anything? Well, I won't take it. Go ahead, Chris. Do you remember something? Well, the difference, one of the differences is that Rivka goes to her father. No, sorry, Zipporah goes to her father, to Reuel or Yitro, and tells the story. Look, this guy did this for me and he's nice. And he said, why didn't you invite him if he's so nice? Now, in the story of Rebecca, we get in touch with an evil guy called Laban.
Yes.
Mhm.
And Rivka goes and tells the story to him, to her brother, not to her father. And Eliezer gives Rivka a very nice piece of jewel. Nezem, maybe it was for the nose. So she comes to Laban and she said, no. And Eliezer tell her, oh, my master has so much stuff. He's so rich and blah, blah. So when she goes to Laban, he likes all that. And he said, okay, bring him in. He must have a lot of gold. So we're talking about a different approach of bringing in someone you don't know and bringing in someone that you don't know. And I think it's quite fascinating to see that in one case, they want the shidduch and they buy it to convince that. In here, in Reuel, she just said, this is what this man did for me, so kind, and the kindness is what comes into her father to give her as a wife.
Good points. Okay. I don't know. I noticed David's hand up. first, so, and then Larry, but it was very close. So David, is that a Wendy hand? No,
No,
it
this
isn't.
is a
It's a
David.
David hand.
I wanted to pick up on the idea that Jethro gave Moses Zipporah. It doesn't say that there was a courtship, but it also doesn't say that there wasn't a courtship.
Right.
In Cecil DeMille's movie, there is clearly a courtship. Moses at first says he's not going to choose anyone, and then he chooses Zipporah. But this, I think, is a rather beautiful Jewish tradition. I followed that tradition when I proposed to Wendy. We were visiting Wendy's parents shortly afterwards, and I asked Wendy's father and I asked Wendy's mother if I could have her hand and the rest of her in marriage. And I think they really appreciated the respect that I at least asked for that.
Very good
That's
point.
very good.
Very
Very
good point.
good.
Thanks.
And in your wedding, let me ask you, and in your wedding, who walked with her to the chuppah?
It was what his father did.
Sure.
Right, he gave her from man
Yeah,
to another man.
yeah.
That's right.
And that's carried on right down all the way through now. I mean,
Absolutely,
Right.
that's not
absolutely.
just Jews. Yeah.
Okay.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
Larry, you had your hand up.
I
And
wanted
I
to
think
mention that
Suzanne is thinking about raising her hand.
throughout the Bible, we come across the phrase, welcome the stranger. And it starts with Abraham. And because you never know, could they be angels of God?
Excellent way of putting it. Excellent way of putting it. Yes. Suzanne, did you have something you wanted to add?
Oh, I just want to say, Christians, the fathers walk the bride down the aisle as well, and give their daughters away. So it's kind of a universal thing.
Right. It's
No.
Right.
The Jews took it from the Christians, Suzanne.
Yeah.
The Jews took it from the Christian. The way that weddings are conducted are not the way that Jews conduct, and in Israel, it's not conducted that way. So
Oh.
you're absolutely right. So we stole it or borrowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let Ruth Ann. She hasn't said much today.
Because I
so-
just got back. No, I was just going to say, when we got married, and even when my daughter got married, my husband, Sid, and I walked her down the aisle. In my wedding, my parents both walked us down the aisle, and the groom's parents, when we got married, Sid's parents walked us down the aisle. And what I really think is very interesting too, if you look at the ketubah, okay, the contract, the woman makes no promises. As far as I know.
No.
What does she
That's
promise?
not true.
What does she promise?
No. What she promised, that she's going to give sex, that she's going to behave, that she's going to be a good wife, but not specific. So maybe it's
Yes, but he has to promise to keep her in the same lifestyle that she's accustomed to. I mean,
Yes.
he makes
Right.
a whole lot of promises to
Absolutely.
her well-being, which I don't see, Christian, guys doing,
No, they don't.
Yeah.
It is a contract.
She does.
It is a contract. The ketubah is really a contract.
Uh-huh.
And yes, you are both of you are very correct in these things. Several people. Okay. I think Dawn was next. Joanne. I'm not sure. I just don't know. And then Michael.
In the US, there's also a tradition that in some circumstances, the bride's father is armed with a shotgun as well.
Good one. Go ahead, Joanne.
I just want to add, in a number of weddings I've been to in recent years, the father walks the bride down the aisle, but when asked who gives this lady, names her, in marriage, the father says her mother and I do.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
It can be done either way.
Yeah, right.
That's right. Those are options. Yes, Michael.
I see it a little differently, that the father is not giving his daughter away, but what's happening there, I see that what is happening is that the father is welcoming a new member into the family.
Mm-hmm.
The mother does that. The mother-in-law welcomes the new couple. The father gives,
You can see the differences in tradition from different parts of the world and how they have found their way into different groups of people and how it gets passed on one generation after the other. Yes, Gail.
I have a question. The bride is veiled at the beginning. Does this go back because of something that happened in a few books ago?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's where that tradition came from. The bride is veiled, but the veil is lifted. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Without going into details, everybody knows that.
On the other hand, the veil is lifted for two reasons. One is when Rivka sits on the camel, she puts the veil and Isaac doesn't see her. He has to take what they give him. And the other one is because, who's his son? Jacob. Jacob wants to make sure that he gets Rachel and not Leah. So he checks out.
Very good. Very good. Well, the next is the name Gershom. We don't hear. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Joanne.
I'm just going to add this. In some of my studies on marriage, especially in Africa, one of the things that happens is one of the elder women of the tribe takes the young man that's going to get married, and a few nights before he actually gets married, she teaches him about sex and how to have sex with his wife to be.
Interesting.
I thought that was really intriguing.
Interesting.
It is very, very good.
Yeah.
Well, after that, it's hard for us, but why don't we go on to discussing Gershon?
Yeah, I mean,
we don't hear too much about him later, in the rest of the stories. But any comments about Gershon? One of the commentaries that I came across is that the name is derived from Garash.
Yeah.
Ger.
Okay. To drive out.
Ger is alien. Ger is someone that dwells temporarily. Is someone that today we don't respect and try to kick out. Yep.
Okay. So it's like a play on the words, but a lot of the names do this. Yes, Ricky.
Yeah, mine says Ger is a sojourner, and I pulled out an old Reader's Digest of who's who in the Bible, and Gershon gets like a paragraph, and so many other people get pages. So that's sort of an indication of, but the child who was called Gershon because Moses said I was a sojourner. That's the word that they use.
Right.
Sojourn. Yeah. That's a better word. Sorry.
Yeah.
So then we come to the phrase that he named his son for this because Moses says, I have been a stranger in a foreign land.
Right.
Some people's version, it says strange land.
And mine is so
So
generic.
which land is it?
Great question.
Depends on
Is
how
it
you
his
define
time he's
strange.
referring to in Egypt?
I
Or
think
his time in Midian?
in Midian.
Midian.
Yeah, I think I
Almost
would
said
say
Egypt.
Midian, but you
Midian.
have to raise the question,
Right.
which when I've seen this phrase before, and every time I see it, I'm going to try to share my screen. First, Ricky, am I correct that I first have to pull up what I want to share?
That would be good because it'll be easier to find.
Okay, let me.
Otherwise, you have to alt tab till you find the one you want.
Okay, and then I have to
Go to the
go
top.
to a different one. Well, it keeps bouncing back and forth, so I don't know.
Well, when you share screen, it'll show you all of the windows you have open.
Very
Then you
good,
can-
so that's good, and then
you
I can click
select
on
the
it.
one you want. If you've
Okay,
got a lot of
so
things open.
this is part of the fun for today.
Oh, okay. What are you sharing? It's not there yet.
Let's see, just a minute.
Find the right one.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
You sure you had it
Not on
open?
my Safari unknown. I guess that's the one.
It is the green button.
No, he's got the.
I did that. I have to share. There's
He's
no
got-
video, so all I need to do, let me try this and see what happens.
Did you have open what it is you want to share with us?
Yes.
So it's down on your tab. Okay.
Oh, come on. This is getting to be ridiculous. Let me try it again.
Just click it once.
I have several here. Ruth Ann, I'm glad you're here. It says Safari unknown twice, and it says universal access.
I'm going to try a screen share just to see if the settings of this Zoom account.
Well, I don't want to waste too much time because this is a digression.
Okay,
It sounds more like you lost whatever it is you wanted to share.
Yeah, because I
think you need to go back and start from scratch to get it back again.
Okay. Well, I don't think it's going to be that critical, but there was a book written in 1961. It was released called Stranger in a Strange Land.
Right.
By Robert Heinlein.
Herbert.
Excuse me?
A science fiction classic.
Yes, it is by Robert Heinlein. It is a very, and it's based on this phrase. It's not uncommon for authors to take a phrase from a previous known book and use a phrase from it for their discussion. And basically, it was widely read, but it was not everybody liked it because of the storyline where a human is raised by Martians.
Yeah.
Okay, sort of like a little bit Romulus and Remus built in, raised by wolves. Okay, and he is going to. He comes to Earth, and he winds up starting a new religion. Now, part of the Martian custom is that when somebody dies, they eat a piece of that person. Okay? They grok the person. Some of you may know that is to know or understand what someone has said or does. We use that word grok entered the English language for a while, and you can find it in the dictionary, Grok. And I don't want to go into all of the discussion, but in this story, they form a new religion. Okay, and that is probably what's going to save the Earth from the Martians. Okay, because they have the intent of destroying the Earth, just like they destroyed the fifth planet, okay, in the solar system, which now we know as the asteroid belt. Okay. So anyway, it's sci-fi, but it's just it takes this right from this passage that we were reading. So I didn't want to go into any of the details of the story other than that, but you can see the basis of a stranger in a strange land. And if anyone is interested, they can read that book. Larry, you've had your hand up, and I think David had his hand up too. Go ahead, Larry.
This stranger in a strange land is in the King James Version. And
yes, that is very true. So I agree with you on that. Any other, David, you wanted to make a comment?
Yes, I did. And just point of order, that when you asked the question as to which land that was, to which they were referring, you had said, I've been a stranger from a strange land, but the wording is a stranger in a strange land, which means the land is Midian.
Right.
Very good. Yes, Don.
What's the actual Hebrew for stranger in a strange land? Anybody know?
Okay, I have to rely on Mary for that.
Can you repeat it? It was difficult to understand you, Don.
What is the Hebrew
To me.
for stranger in a strange land? What's the direct literal conversion?
It is a stranger line, someone that does not belong to something, that does not belong to the tribe, or does not belong to the land, or a woman also that doesn't belong, that she is an outsider. They call it nochriya. Someone that's an outsider, that does not belong naturally.
It's a good play on words, also, because in Heinlein's event, story, you can say that both are strange, both are alien. Okay, the stranger, the alien coming from Mars, but he's really an earthling. And the land itself is strange. So so you take your pick, you can look at it multiple ways. And it's just an interesting play on words. Yes, Don.
Well, that makes someone who's a stranger in a strange land is utterly isolated. And so that to actually name one's son to reflect that deep isolation is a pretty significant issue.
A lot of the names that we have read, Don, yes, a lot of the names that we have come across, the naming of children and like that, we see that with all of the sons. You know, there is explanation in Torah. They usually deal with an event. We learn about Isaac and Yitzhak, Mary. Is that it refers to the laughing that, you know, God says to Sarah, you know, why did you laugh? He asked that, and she says, I didn't. He says, but yes, you did. and the name of Isaac is derived from that, the laughter.
Laughter.
So yes, Michael, and
the,
Mary.
the term in recent years, illegal alien, may have come from this what we're talking about.
It does, and it's used. There are other, you know, you can talk about things, but when coming from where I had lived in the United States, winding up in Tucson, the Tucson area, I felt like a stranger in a strange land. Okay. And it's what you make of it. That's like anything else. So yes, it's interesting. Yes, Joanne.
I was looking it up on my iPhone, and there is another book called Strangers with an S in a Strangers in a Strange Land, and it's by Charles Chaput, but it's living the Catholic faith in a post-Christian world. So it's that same
the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what about Strangers in the Night by Frank Sinatra?
That's all means east of Eden.
Good note,
Oh, this
Michael.
is good. Yes, Rabbi Mary.
Well, I just to comment, since you mentioned what's going on now, as Michael said, you know, one of the things that those nice people say to African American, Jews, Mexicans, whatever, why don't you go to your, you don't belong here, go back to your country. And that's the kind of thing that we talk about, Nochriya, a place that that's different. And, you know, a Black person can assimilate as much as he wants. It's going to remain a Black person and go back, right? They brought me here, so where shall I go? So it's
Okay.
it's
good
the
point.
statement, yeah, a strange in a strange land.
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi. Any other comments before we read verses 23 through 25? Ricky, I'm sorry, Chris,
thinking.
yes.
Yeah, I just, something came into my mind when I'm listening to all of this. My mother had a saying that said, wherever you go, do as the people do. In other words, you know, you are in a strange land, you go and do what the strange people's land do. And I think that brings peace to some extent, instead of trying to change the way of their lives as they are. I definitely feel that, there's some good points and they can be brought up without having to be fighting for everything. But I also see that our ancestors, even in the scripture, when they went to Babylon, God told them, just be happy there and do whatever they do. So I think there is something about you can be wherever you want to be, but respect the people and their lifestyle. You move there.
Okay.
They didn't force you, I think. Okay, that's my point.
Another good point. Yes, Ricky.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this theme obviously is very important to me as a ger, but 20 years ago or whatever. Because when I was asked what I would want to put on the bottom of the memorial plaque thingy in the synagogue, who did he dedicate it to? I really, if you read the bottom, it says to Klal Israel, who welcomes the stranger. To me, that is such a key aspect of Judaism, of the welcomingness. Although I have to admit that the rabbi that was, getting me prepared for conversion, took his time. It was just, it was a very long, tedious process, but yet it was very welcoming the whole time.
Sure.
And yet I'm told that almost always you want to discourage somebody from trying to convert because you want to make sure they really want to convert, that it's just,
Right.
Yeah, and when I took one class, half the women there, or most of the women there were converting only because they were marrying a Jew, and, which was very different than those of us that were converting because we wanted to be Jewish, officially, legally. But the welcoming the stranger is a very important concept to me.
Oh, yeah. Well, it is in Judaism in general.
Definitely. That's not.
So it's it starts out.
Well, it starts with Abraham.
You could even say it starts.
All of them.
It starts
Abraham
out
was the
with
first
Noah. It starts out with Noah.
Noah,
This-
who did he welcome?
this
Come
is,
on, all you critters! Any two of you can come in.
This is the
No, I'm joking, but yes, Abraham. Yes.
This is the
Gail,
essence.
Gail,
the
and then
essence.
Joanne,
Yeah,
Don was
and
next.
then I think Don also had his hand up. So Gail, Joanne, Don.
What was I gonna, it's a Green Valley moment. Damn. I know what I was gonna say. So when a person converts to Judaism, those that are born into it are never, ever, ever to refer to a convert as other than an equal.
Right.
Correct.
It's just not done.
But it's sound advice. It's sound advice when you think about it. It gets rid of another class.
Right. Well, it's one thing for Ricky and me to refer to our conversions, but it would be bad form for someone who's born into it to have anything to say.
That's right.
Right, Ricky?
Yep.
No, you're very
I just became legally what I always was anyway. I mean, my father was Jewish, I was Jewish, but my mother wasn't, so I had to do it the right way, and I did.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Don. Oh, yes. I forgot. I think Don, Joanne, then Michael. And I forgot the sequence. I apologize.
Joanne was before me.
Yeah, it was Joanne and then Don.
Okay, Joanne's first. Okay, so Joanne, you have the floor or the screen.
One of the things, because Gail said what she said, in Catholic, if you are not of the Catholic faith and join the Catholic Church, Catholics are always known as cradle Catholics. And I've heard multiple comments about, oh, they aren't a cradle Catholic. So
Oh, wow.
it's a nasty. It's a
It's
nasty.
awful.
But I also this week heard President Biden say, you can take the boy out of Scranton, but you can't take Scranton out of the boy. And I think that's very true of what we're reading here about Moses and about just whatever's here. He may be a stranger in a strange land, but he still is Jewish.
No. It like anything else, whatever you have grown up with, that's going to color everything for the rest of your life. Okay. Now Don had his hand, and then Michael.
I think a really impressive example of welcoming was the mass influx of Soviet Jews into Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ethiopians.
Most of whom were totally secular. And it was a very difficult adaptation. And then followed by the Ethiopian Jews, which is even more difficult.
Yes.
I know Israel was trying to expand the population, but even so, it's really impressive.
I was living in Israel when the Ethiopians came.
That wasn't so easy.
Well, it was they put them up in hotels so that they could get them used to a lot of customs and things. But a true story, when I was living in the Ulpan, which is, Mary knows what that is. It's the school and where the people go when they first move to Israel. And so you have a mixture of people from all over, and right across the hall from my husband and I room was Boris and Natasha from Russia. I am not kidding. That was really their names. And they were very secular, but they had come from Russia. This is back in the 80s.
Good point. You guys are doing good. Michael and then Ricky.
You know, Marty, the welcoming is just the beginning. We're talking about really the essence of Judaism. You talk about things, welcoming, charity, kindness, forgiveness is the psychology and the essence of the religion, and among other things.
Another good point. Very good. Very good. Ricky.
I want to go back to what you just said, and most people will take as true, is how you're raised determines your attitudes or whatever, through life. Okay, my mother was an Italian Catholic non-practicing. My father was a Russian Jew non-practicing. I was boarded out. I was in a boarding nursery school that was Christian. I lived with a Catholic family for a while. Most of my upbringing was somewhere in the Christian realm. And, if I get into a Christian church, I'm singing the hymns right along with everybody else because I grew up with them. But by high school, I realized half the books I was reading were Jewish oriented. My friends were Jewish. I was Jewish, even though I was totally raised in Christian and Catholic environments. So I just wanted to refute what you said.
Okay.
Because I remember when I finally converted and the rabbis, after I got my Aliyah and the rabbi said, you want to say something? I said, yeah, now I legally am what I always was.
Right. I think it's in our DNA, Ricky.
Exactly. It was so, I was more Jewish in high school than my father. I bought him a chai to wear as a necklace. It was just, Gail, are you laughing or you're identifying with? Yeah, it was in my DNA. I know that. So nature, nurture, which was it? For me, it was in my nature that I was Jewish, not my nurture.
Very good. Well, that's the standard argument, which is it in any given person. So, yes, Michael.
One other thing I wanted to bring up is that in all the in becoming a Jew, if you want to convert, the process, it's not that easy. You still can if you're. It's easy if you're reformed rabbi. It would be much easier than if you were an Orthodox rabbi. Now it's and in the Orthodox, the demonstration is pretty powerful because you've got to really show the rabbi that you want to do it by coming there, knocking on his door 3 times after being asked to go about, go be best Catholic, be the best Catholic you can be. But so there's a real passion there, I think.
Yeah. I split
Good
it.
point.
I converted in conservative, so I split the middle. I went down the middle.
Well, I went from one extreme to another to demonstrate my point.
Okay.
I had to
Any
have a
other
look.
comments about what we've just been reading and commenting on? Let's go back to the text. Ricky or someone else want to read? Going once, twice.
23. Oh, just
23.
okay. Hey, at least now we have a time frame. A long time after that, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites were growing under the bondage and cried out, and their cry for help from the bondage rose up to God. God heard their moaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. God looked upon the Israelites, and God took notice of them.
Okay. Anything that you would like to discuss, Ricky, about what you just read?
It's so obvious, this one paragraph. That's probably one of the simplest paragraphs. Yeah, no comment.
Okay. Okay. First, before I recognize Mary, I wanted to just say one thing. I forgot to mention this. What does God say to Abraham when God is saying this is what will happen?
I'll make you a blessing to the world.
Your offspring shall be strangers in a land not theirs. Okay.
Yeah.
The land that is referred to in this commentary is the land of Egypt.
Right.
Okay. Not Midian. And Moses speaks of there, not here. Okay, in the way it's stated, as well as referring to the past. The fulfillment of the predicted slavery evokes the associated promise of liberation.
Right.
So that the birth of the child may be seen as symbolic of the coming regeneration of downtrodden Israel. Okay, I had forgotten to read that. I thought that was a very important commentary. So as you were going to say, Rabbi Mary, and then Don.
Very quickly, when they went into slavery, it happened because Pharaoh did not know Joseph. A new Pharaoh came and he did not know Joseph. And here again, we have a new Pharaoh, or Paro, that he dies and we don't know, but he's the super bad guy.
Right. So you have another generation of pharaohs. That's right.
Right.
Okay. And in Cecil B. DeMille's version, this pharaoh would be Moses' brother, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
Then the Cecil
The
B. DeMille.
stepbrother or, well,
Right.
Aaron.
Okay. Don, and then Larry.
Yeah, thank you, Rabbi Mary. That relates to the question I was going to ask, is that we know that the Pharaoh who was alive when Moses left Egypt wasn't the best pal
Right.
at the time. And so then his successor intensified the bondage, slavery. But we don't know who those pharaohs were. I mean, I keep digging around trying to find out anything in Egyptian literature, Egyptian history, who those pharaohs were, but there's no mention of the
right.
Hebrews in slavery at the time. So I'm just throwing that out there. If anybody happens to.
Okay, I can answer that.
Okay,
Oh, good.
please. Please, Larry.
Okay, in verse 23, according to Hertz, first of all, many days, rabbinic tradition assigns 40 years to the period spent by Moses in exile from Egypt. The king of Egypt died, probably Ramses II, who reigned 67 years. The Israelites evidently hoped that his successor, Merneptah, might offer some relief, but they were disappointed. The regime of ruthless oppression towards Israel would now become the status quo. They realized the hopelessness of their bondage, therefore they cried unto God. That's from Hertz commentary.
Very good.
Very good. Very good.
And
There's no record in Egyptian
correct.
history to that effect. So it's only in the scriptures.
So, okay, very good, Don. That is very correct. Yes, Chris.
I just have a question. If anybody does know any on the anthropology or archaeology findings in Egypt, if anywhere, and they're stated about the staying of the Hebrews in Egypt or the departure of the Hebrews in Egypt. As far as
There are some videos that you can pick up on the internet that deal with certain sites and like that. But one of the things, again, the movie states this, what I'm about to say, but it's also known about the Egyptians when you fell into disfavor, any record was erased from the steel.
okay,
And you did not have, so that is another possibility, and that's been tossed out. That I don't know. I just don't know personally, but I
Right.
know of the different ways that it happens. Suzanne, yes.
You can find this on Facebook and probably Amazon, but there's a filmmaker by the name of Tim Mahoney.
Yes, you sent me some videos about him in the past.
Right, and he did one on patterns of evidence, or what he called patterns of evidence, where he was trying to figure out about this question: did the Israelites really, live in Egypt and so forth? And he interviewed all kinds of people who had all different opinions. And what he came up with, without giving too much away, was that the timeline is wrong and that Ramses II was not the Pharaoh in question with Moses and the Israelites. And that when the Bible mentions Ramses, that there was actually a small city or town called Ramses. And there was, it was built on top of another place. And they found lots of archaeological evidence of a group of non-Egyptian people living in this place.
Okay.
And also found a small pyramid, very small, with a statue of a person that they believe was Joseph. And anyways,
Yeah.
you can see it on, sometimes Facebook offers the film for free.
Oh,
And
thank
it
you.
really has good information. I mean, you can make up your own mind after watching it, but I mean, for me, everything in the Bible is true, not just parts of it, all of it. And it does not surprise me that we might have gotten the timeline wrong. I do
Okay.
think that's a very real possibility.
Thank you. Gail?
Yeah, I'd just like to suggest that, Suzanne, that you read Friedman's book called
Yes.
The Exodus. I'm telling you, the explanations in there, you don't need to get into archaeology. It's based on language and customs and things. I think you would find it very, very satisfying. And it
Thank
doesn't-
you.
He
and it
was
doesn't-
interviewed. He was interviewed in that film.
He doesn't destroy the story of the Exodus, but he downsizes it and makes it, and says that it was the Levites that actually did the Exodus. So anyway, I really encourage you to read that book. I think you'll find it helpful.
It's another,
Okay.
Thank you,
so
Gail.
it gives you more information too. It is very good, Gail. Yes, you've recommended that before too. Any other comments before I read something here? What I wanted to do is to just that we're being told that God remembers.
Yeah.
Okay. And I came across another, that God remembers things. And in the passages we've read, and I'll just read it from this source here, 4 terms that are stated in verse 23 suggest the words moaning or groaning, cried out, cry for help, and 4 verbs express God's response, that he
Right.
heard, he remembered, he looked upon, and took notice.
Mm.
And that leads us into the Mary, the root for the Hebrew word remember. I have,
Iskor, and you know this word because on Shabbat you say Iskor. In Yom Kippur you say Iskor, which is remembrance. So
Right.
remembering is a good word. But I want to tell you a story.
Okay, can I
Once
just
upon a
finish
time-
this? Let me finish this
Oh,
and
of
then,
course, I'm
and then
so
we'll let
sorry.
you, we'll get into your story. But it suggests that the term remembered is much more than the recall of things in the past. To this author, it meant rather to be mindful, to pay heed, signifying a sharp focusing of attention upon someone or something. It embraces concern and involvement and is active, not passive. It's just not, oh, I remember. And what is remembered? Well, first he says remembering often leads to action. God remembers his covenant. The oft repeat, and it is stated multiple times by the various patriarchs, and it implies national territory. So all of this goes again returns us for us to remember the story of the covenant when we read about Abraham in the book of Genesis.
Mhm.
Yes, Ricky.
This bothers me, and why I didn't say anything about the paragraph. God remembered. Well, of course God remembers. He remembered. There is no time difference for God.
Right.
The past, the present, the future, he's got it, he, she, it, whatever you want to do there, because that's another issue. Has got it all in front of him, all the time. So this being remembered, is a past tense thing, and then that just always bugged me.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's much more than just remembering the past, as you're saying.
But what I'm saying is, for God, what's past is present is future. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It isn't past. It's all now. It's all whatever.
I think we need to hear from Rabbi Miri for story.
Yes, we're
Yes.
going, by the way, Ricky, we're going to get into that very discussion next week.
Oh, okay, then good.
Okay. No, it's important. It's very important.
Okay,
Yes,
but next
Rabbi
week,
Mary.
It's now.
Well, this passage, someone said before that taking care of the stranger is the essence of Judaism. I think that Michael said. Now, in my mind, as a person and as a rabbi, not that they are different, but as the thought of Judaism is here. The story goes that this guy is in a little, and I told it in the past, is in a little boat and there is a big storm and he is afraid, the boat gets water and he's afraid and he says, oh God, save me. And then all of a sudden, this helicopter passes by. And he keeps saying, oh God, help me. And then a submarine comes and he keeps saying, oh God, help me. And then a cruiser passes by. Oh, God, help me. And then God said, for God's sakes, I sent you a submarine. I sent you a helicopter. I sent you a cruiser. What else do you want? What was missing there is what he is going to do.
Right.
Because it took here for them to cry. So God remembered. This is what we have in the text. This is nothing to do with belief. If God has a present, past, and he always remember everything. The core here is they cried, and then God came. So in Judaism, there is a God, no matter how you see that, but it's up to you to take initiative and to help God. God cannot work by herself. So that's the core. It's up to us to initiate and being helped.
Very well stated. I think that this dovetails into the reading of the 4 questions. Okay, the different ways we. Okay.
Pray for potatoes, but pick up a hoe.
Okay.
You got to pick up the hoe. Don't just pray. Yeah.
Okay. But I can see that. Well, we're basically reading from the Haggadah, and we are, and it's almost as if we are reading the 4 questions, you know, the different children and how they respond and everything else, and the response to the different questions. And so we're going through this again. And there's another reason why we are commanded. I mean, we're going to read that this is something we're supposed to do every year. That's going to come up later in the text. We may get to that by the end of the year, maybe next year. But we're commanded to read, you know, to review the story of the Passover. And there's a reason why. The themes, as we have been talking about, one of the major themes is welcoming the stranger, but that's how it's not just saying, hi, how you doing? It's welcoming them in completeness. It's much more. And that's why I think that you're finding it here. In order for us to remember, we have to think about some of the things we and our families have experienced over the years that make us feel this way. And every group has suffered in some way, not only Jews, but there are other religious groups still today that happens. There are different ethnic groups, racial groups. They all can see some of this at play every single day. And that's why we are commanded to remember all of this.
Well,
And
also,
yeah. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, it's also it's to recognize the greatness of God when he did this for the Jews, when he gave safe passage to the Jews after what they've been through. And it's really all about praising the greatness of God. And it's so throughout the entire Torah that these things, you know, some of them are a little less dynamic as others, but this was the great I would say achievement, and the Jews could never forget. Let's put it that way. Could never forget this, and it's incumbent on Jews to recognize this year after year, century after century.
As a matter of fact, some people have called the Jews, and I've mentioned this before, the people who remember. Interesting. Yes, please, Joanne, and then Larry. Oh, okay, Joanne.
I keep thinking, especially after Rabbi Miriam told her story about boats, etc. When my children were young, 3 boys in 4 years, they were busy. And oftentimes, right at first, I reacted to the event. Whatever they were doing, I was reacting, and it was causing me just discouragement of my mothering and causing them trouble. And then I realized I needed to act to prevent. And this person in the boat, he keeps screaming, but he doesn't act to prevent himself from drowning. And I think it's really important. And I see this often in the Bible. You know, they rethink about what the event is, and then they act to prevent it in the future. And I like, it's fascinating how what I learned as a mother is just keeps coming up in the Bible here. Thank you.
Good point. Another good point. Yes, Don.
I may be Jewish, but I still need to find my phone app on my phone.
Google it.
Oh, golly, that was good. Any other comments? Well, I think this is a good place to stop because the theme shifts a little bit. And I think next week is a good place to start that. Grace, I answered your request. Okay, did you get that?
Yes, I did, Marty. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. And I want to thank everyone again. This was a good, lively discussion. Once in a while, it's fun to bring in something just to laugh about it or digress, because certain themes we know from other books that we've read and the like. They keep a lot of themes that we see in the Bible have been made into novels, movies, all kinds of things. So it just to let people be aware of that. Anyway, if there are no other bits and pieces to discuss, by the way, some of you may be familiar with a fellow. He was Jewish, Derrida, a philosopher. And what we do in the approach, he's new to me because I'm also in a philosophy class and I have to find things to discuss. And he's new to me, but he also was a very strong proponent of what we are going through in our study of Torah, looking at all of the different nuances of words, getting down to the root words, and going back to reread something that it may mean, you may have a different interpretation of it the next time you read it. And it's a very interesting discussion that he puts forth in his philosophy. He talks about words in general. So just to mention that.
I do have an announcement, Marty.
Yes.
Sisterhood is going to the Botanical Garden on Tuesday, and we're going to meet up at the temple at 9:00. So if you can make it, do show up. 9:00 at the temple. We'll caravan up to the Botanical Garden. It should be a really nice weather and a lot of fun.
Yeah. Sue and I were there a few weeks ago. Don't miss the butterfly pavilion.
Oh yeah.
They always have something new there to see. And there are other areas that are very pleasant. It's sort of between seasons, but look at the details in the different leaves, the different types of bark on the trees, and they have some. Bring your smartphone if you come, because they have when you're out, the mask is optional. When you're outside. Indoors, it's a different story. They require that you put your mask on. But they have a new program combining art, music, and the scene you're looking at.
Right.
And so you pick up when you walk in, stop off at the desk. It's well marked, so that you can get that app loaded onto your smartphone. And then there's a map. And as you walk along to certain locations, you link up your iPhone to the program that's being radioed to your phone. Okay. And you will see some artwork and also different music.
And Marty,
Your music.
Marty, you're the new publicity chairman for the sisterhood. Thank you very much.
Uh-oh. Hey, Grace, you have to draw a few pictures on your mask. I love it. Anyway, just wanted to say that it's a remarkable place, and it has won several national awards. It's listed as one in the top 10 in some botanic gardens in the country. So in certain books. So it's worthwhile. Sorry about that. Ruth Ann, any other announcements? Thank you, Gal.